So I'm doing another one of these videos, what fragrances would these TV show characters wear? But this time for women. I haven't done any of the women's versions yet. So I'm going to start with Audrey Horne from Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks remains one of my kind of top 5 shows. I have to mention it again, even though I mentioned it before. But Audrey Horne, I feel like she would go for something a little bit over the top, if not way over the top, with something like Killian Angel's Cher. Something loud and also something expensive. Mainly because she's, rich, so she's definitely gonna go for something like that. Also, she likes to get a lot of attention, and Angel Cher definitely does accomplish that. It's primarily a cognac, kind of spicy, woodsy type of fragrance with some praline, so it has some pretty intense sweetness to it. Now, I don't believe that fragrance existed in the 90s, but if it did, I feel like she would definitely go for that. Super long lasting, really almost cloying, but still has that air of luxury. So definitely a very unique fragrance that really attracts a lot of attention. I believe it is unisex actually, but I feel like it kind of is more feminine, but definitely something loud. And she probably put on a bit too much of it just to get even more attention. But moving on from her, I'll say Rachel Green from Friends. She also comes from a rich background, but I feel like she goes for something very mainstream for the time. Probably something like Trésor from Lacombe. So kind of standard for the time, fruity, very sweet. I mean, a whole bunch of fruits and florals. You got peaches and lilacs and things like that. So very, very feminine, very sweet, very strong, but not trashy necessarily. Lacombe still pretty. Trésor is still a very good fragrance as a whole. But I definitely feel like she would go for something very sweet. So either, Trésor or something, another gourmand. Definitely something sugary. I don't see her wearing anything very, light or breezy. Like, if it existed back then, she would probably immediately go for Baccarat Rouge 540. Something very, top shelf, oversaturated, very mainstream, and very strong, very feminine. But Baccarat Rouge didn't exist back then, so again, I think Trésor was a good option for the time. The next one I have is Catherine Janeway from Star Trek, obviously. This one, now either she just would not wear any fragrance. I feel like she's very kind of Spartan in that way, not wasting time on more superficial things like fragrances. But if she did wear a fragrance, I feel like she would go for something very powerful, very, no nonsense, straightforward. So I was thinking the original Coco by Chanel, not Coco Noir, not Coco Mademoiselle, but the original, just plain Coco from the 1980s. And that is a pretty powerful women's fragrance. It is mostly kind of an ambery, warm, heavy sort of fragrance. It has some cloves, some coriander, tonka bean, sandalwood, some florals, but primarily it's actually pretty heavy, smooth, not too crazy. Heavy but smooth at the same time, so it's not gonna, blast anyone away. Has a little bit of civet thrown in there for some musk, but definitely I feel like she would go for something like that if she was going to wear a fragrance, because otherwise I feel like she wouldn't wear a fragrance in the first place. But again, like a special occasion sort of thing, she'd probably wear something like Coco. The next one I have is Dana Scully from X-Files. This one, I feel like she would wear something vintage. She would wear something old-fashioned, not in a bad way, but just something that she knows is not very strong, not distractingly strong, but also very reliable, and kind of a classic feminine sort of vibe to it. So I have 3 options that she would probably pick. Either L'air du temps by Nina Ricci, Arpège from L'Avant or Chanel No. 5. Those are all very, very similar. They're kind of like the three sisters of that type of fragrance, floral aldehydes with a little bit of musk and kind of powdery. So I definitely feel like she would wear something, one of those older fragrances that are floral and feminine, but have a little bit of musk to them, and they're not too strong to not get in the way. So definitely one of those three. And the last one that I have is Daphne Moon from Frasier. Now this one, actually, I believe she mentions in one of the episodes that she wears Obsession by Calvin Klein, which is a very animalistic, musky, woodsy scent. You know, a very, for the time, very popular option, very mainstream option. But besides that, if she didn't wear Obsession, maybe she wanted to wear something else. I feel like another option that she might wear is something along the lines of Je Vois Psychedelic, because that's similarly strong to Obsession, but just with different notes, more patchouli and amber, rather than musks and spices. So definitely, I mean, we know within the show that she gravitates more towards the heavier fragrances. So I feel like psychedelic would be a pretty good option, you know, if it had been around during that time, because it is definitely one of those really heavy, long-lasting fragrances, and I feel like it would have fit her character, kind of going for that more natural notes sort of thing, but also kind of heavy and mysterious to go with her witchy vibe that she kind of had. But that is pretty much my list here for the female version of, you know, what kind of fragrances would these TV show characters wear. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, you could leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos like these throughout the week, so stick around for those.